welcome to Monday Manna. Listen, I want to bless your life with this word real quick and real simple. I want you, since we are on this tongue fast, I want you to consider doing this. Take this word out of your vocabulary. What is it, Pastor Andina? The word can't. I personally hate that word. Don't use can't, don't use try, because then you're not aiming to reach the goal that you're setting. I want you to take the word can't out of your vocabulary and place it with I can, because there's nothing in your life that you cannot succeed and do it successfully. Listen, close your ears to those that are talking to you, trying to deter you from your dream, trying to deter you from your destiny, trying to make you double-minded and unstable. Turn this thing around for your betterment. God has a plan for you. He has a purpose for your life. And there's nothing that you can do that you cannot succeed if you put your mind to. So this word, fast word, is can't. Take that word out of your mouth. You're watching Monday Manna with Pastor Andina. I love you, and I hope you love me too. I'll see you next week. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and go to ptmu1.com and watch all of our other previous episodes. I love you. See you next week. Bye.
You're encouraging us to take out the word cannot, can't, and try. What do you say to people who is like, well, it's not me that's saying I can't do this. It's people that are around me, my mother, my father, my sister, my brother, and I can't give it to them because they're my family. They're
but
my
you can
friends.
turn them off. You don't have to listen to what they're trying to feed you. I looked at it this way. I had to look at my own family. And I had to truthfully acknowledge that how many of them were actually successful in what they said that they were going to do. Because the spirit of procrastination runs deep. You don't get anywhere by watching people who have not accomplished anything. They can't teach you anything except for how not to accomplish anything. So then they say, oh girl, you share your dream. Oh girl, you can't do this. Well, why? Why can't I do it? Because it's something different? Is it something because it's outside of the box that you put me in or I've grown up in? Why can't I therefore change what I believe from my life and my narrative to become something better? There's some people that are first-time college goers in their family. There's always a first somewhere. So if you don't begin to break those things from your life, then you'll never succeed, and you will always sit by on the sidelines of your own life while everybody else is dictating what you should be doing.
Now, as somebody who's extremely close to their family, I've been faulted for being a daddy's girl a lot. If, let's say they are saying, well, we're not saying you can't do this. We're saying maybe you shouldn't do this because either it's risky or there's no guarantee for this.
Well, there are fine lines with that. We must be strategic and methodical. I'm not talking people that are just haphazard because everybody got an idea.
Right.
You know, you got that family member, you know, Uncle Bubba, who every family reunion, he got something else he doing. You know, I'm talking about developmental things. Sometimes even characteristic things that people say you can't. You want to become a business owner, you may be the first one in your family.
Right.
But it was obviously something, one, that God planted inside of you. Number two, you saw something that you knew that you connected with that was going to make your situation better. It does not take rocket science to say, I don't have enough money to meet my bills. I may need to go get another job.
Right.
Or if an opportunity that is really good for you presented itself, you don't just get into anything. You have to study it.
Right.
You have to watch it. You have to become a master of it. You must need training. So there's a difference when people are telling you can't for your own good or help you process mentally. Like I remember one episode, you asked me about who's my ride or die, like my sister. She's my other brain. She's my person. Oh, I have this idea, and she'll be the first one. Well, why? She'll ask me all the questions I need so that I can properly dissect the purpose and the reason. Not just the fact that God gave me the vision, but now I have to trust the methodical, because why? That's what the earth is going to see. And then I have to trust the spiritual because God gave me the vision. So where God gave me the vision, God gave me the vision for this show. So when he gave me the vision, I told the Lord, no, I didn't want to do this because I felt that it was too much responsibility for me. And after me and God going back and forth, I said this, God, if this is for me, then you're going to open up the doors of opportunity.
Right.
And that's what he did. So I didn't listen to everybody else because I didn't share it with too many other people. I shared it with one other person.
That's good, because a lot of people say once God gives them
an
idea, they share it with everybody.
Yes. And you can be your own dream killer, because Satan is listening too to see how he can block, and he makes surveillance on our life to see what he can do to hinder your progress. Because then the first thing is, well, you don't have the money for that. Second thing is, well, you're unqualified for that. There are many people that got positions that were unqualified for.
Absolutely. But there's stories in the Bible.
Exactly. All three.
Now, with that, a lot of people are saying, because I was a skeptic. I was one of those people who say, well, God, if you want me to do this, you go make the way for me. He made the way, and it was out of what I thought it was going to be. Mm-hmm. And they're saying, well, I can't do this because I told God I wanted to do A, B, C, and D, and God is having me do this, is that, and the third.
So is it your plan or God's plan?
How would you differentiate between the two?
Because God will always manifest himself. If it's your plan, it will always fail.
Always?
God is always a God of increase.
Absolutely.
And what we're going to do is either that, if you have, again, if my family, you're going to have that procrastinative spirit, it'll start off good for a while and then it'll phase out.
Right.
You know, or you'll always be known as that cousin or that friend or whatever that always starts but never finish. Then you know it wasn't for you. That was something that you just conjured up in your mind, or you saw somebody else doing it and you just thought you could do it better.
Right.
And so, I'm going to jump on this now because it's a fad. Everybody looks like it's all glitter. Everybody looks like, they're making so much money doing it, but they didn't tell you what it took to be on your grind every day, perfecting your craft. The Bible says David was skillful.
Right.
That means he had to study. Okay, he had to study what it is to worship, study what it is to be a musician, study all of those things in order for him to be skillful. So we don't want to take the time to learn. We just want everything now quick, fast, and in a hurry.
Now, it's funny you say that, because a fad that's going around now is the Shopify stores, where you start up a store and you do whatever. Now, there's people who start up Shopify stores and make thousands of dollars overnight, and then there's
I don't think it's overnight. I think that they had just a different way of doing it.
Right.
And they took whatever skills they had. The Bible even says that we as the righteous are to go unto Manna and to learn of their ways. That means if I let's say a secretary, on the job, I have administrative skills, I have perfected that, I'm maybe the assistant to the president or whatever. There are certain things that we don't take from the world and we apply it to biblical principle. And there are things that we learn in the world that we don't even apply to our churches. So if you're not a good administrator, go learn administration. But if you are, people that did that in some form or other had some skill or had someone in their circle to help them to do what they needed to do.
Right.
It doesn't make sense for me to have the same strong skill set as you do. What are we doing?
Right.
I need someone that has my weakness, which is their strength, and let's come together to be able to build.
That's not everybody's mindset, though.
It's not. Because, again, we don't want to teach those things. Or we want to be so deep and super spiritual.
Right. So what I find, especially in this day and age where a lot of young preachers, they want to surround themselves with preachers that look like them and that think like them and that can preach like them. Very rarely do you see young preachers that surround themselves with older, more
generals.
Seasoned.
Absolutely. Because they don't think that
preachers.
The early church has anything to offer, when the foundation was always the early church.
Now let me ask you this. Do you think that the generations could learn from each other?
Absolutely. Absolutely. There is, because you're going to have, most churches, or I should say church in general, should have succession plans. You're not going to stay 25 forever. You're going to age. So with time, age, technology, it all works together. It doesn't mean that the younger preachers are trying to take over, but how about you learn from them and to assist you to grow? And how about you, who have already felt like you've grown and you've seen everything, how about you impart wisdom to the younger, so that they're not running renegade and roughshod all over everywhere, that there is still a divine line of wisdom that's being gained on both sides.
I like that, because a lot of pastors or people in general, I'm just gonna.
Oh, because we live in a generation where these young folks don't even want to be called son. To be called son is an honor.
Now, but a lot of people don't feel that way, especially in this generation. Now, what I found is being a part of this generation, I actually have the honor of seeing it from both sides, because I was born in the early 90s, so I know what it's like to be a millennial, but I also know what it's like to learn, the basic coping skills of life.
Yes.
So speaking as a millennial, do you think that the way we address each other, both the millennials to the older generation and the older generation towards us, needs to change?
It definitely does, because the language is different. And because I may now have an opinion as a millennial doesn't mean I'm disrespectful. But it is how you speak your mind in truth to someone who is older, who comes from that generation of, I'm still your elder.
Right.
And there has to be, teaching to those that are older to be able to understand. It's no longer do as I say do, but why, and help me to understand,
right,
so that I can receive what you're saying.
So that's where the miscommunication comes in.
Definitely.
And I find that it's more so among the millennials and centennials that we feel like, okay, we're in the age of technology, because that's all a lot of us know is technology.
Right.
So versus when we, the older generation, did have to do as they're told, because that's all they were taught.
Exactly.
We got technology
caught up into everything. Yeah.
So how would you go about trying to mend that gap or
it's
that
all about dialogue and
miscommunication?
conversation. How truthful are you willing to be as the leader, whether leader of a corporation, leader of your church? How truthful and transparent are you willing to be to even talk about your error and your failure?
Well, what if you don't want to expose that? So a lot of people,
It's not about exposure. It depends on what you're talking about.
on both sides of the generational coin, we don't want to not expose ourselves, but we don't want to tell you
Be
how
vulnerable.
we feel. Right. We don't want to be vulnerable towards you for fear of you judging us.
Right.
And on the flip side, the older generation feel that they don't have to be vulnerable with us because we're younger.
But again, it is taking maybe someone like myself as a mediator in the middle to hear in dialogue, to be able to speak both languages. Because what is the point in trying to come together if you're already coming defensive to the table and not willing to learn or hear?
Do you think that's necessary in this day and age?
It's absolutely necessary. Absolutely, because now millennials don't even want to come to church anymore.
Absolutely.
And there's a reason why. They don't want to come to church anymore. They're not trying to hear, why we got to do this, why we do that, because you all are used to quick, fast, in a hurry, and another means to getting to the same end.
Right.
Whereas the older church is used to doing it the long way.
Right.
So, okay, but at the end of the day, did we all get the same denomination of the solution?
Right.
So if there's not a mediator to be able to help facilitate this conversation, then no one is hearing the other's language.
Now, what would qualify a person to be a mediator between the generations?
Someone that can hear and discern on both sides too. I'm 50. I just turned 50. I speak the old language. Why? Because I came up from the early church.
Right.
And then I know enough. My son is 22, so I hear enough from him to be able to have conversation with him and dialogue with him as well. It's all about how you're receiving it, how you're hearing it, how you're discerning it, and you have to have wisdom. And you have to understand the cultures of both sides. And so since I studied that, if you will, it's easy conversation, but both parties have to be willing. It's just like a marriage. What is the point in coming when one wants to save the marriage and one doesn't? They're not. What is the mediator going to do? I can tell you your flaws. I can tell you what's your growth patterns and all those things. I can watch all of that. But at the end of the day, if neither one is willing to come and lay it truthfully on the table, then there's not going to be any resolution.
I like that. Last question.
Sure.
With the generational gap that we are obviously experiencing, do you think that time is of the essence?
Absolutely, and it is repairable.
You think so?
It is repairable.
Why?
It's repairable. There are things that the early church did because of only what they knew. And because they were so steadfast. I remember, I have on red lipstick now.
There was a
time where I would have been called a Jezebel. But I understood, because for them and their generation, Jezebel was a woman. It was sinful. And because they were ungodly women, let me tell you, there's a woman who is saved and she shared this with me just flat out. She said, listen, If you're gonna be a hoe, don't be a dumb hoe.
Well.
And I said, but I'm not one. What are you talking about? I was like, oh my God. But her lesson to me was, these great, wonderful preachers were going. She owned a brothel, so she was helping these preachers get their needs met while they traveled on the road.
Wow.
So the women that they went to were women dressed in things that their wife would not dress at home.
Right.
So now we're talking about, how do I see this woman who I will call a street woman? I will do all kinds of things with her that I would never do with my wife.
Right.
Okay? So now let's talk about the church. There are things that the church saw as sinful nature that was not holy as unto the Lord, that you did not bring inside the house of God. So now when a woman comes in wearing what they saw to be a disconnect or disgrace to God, you became a label.
Right.
And so they wiped them up. They made them take off their lipstick and take off their makeup, because for them it represented something that was negative.
So do you think that that was the biggest reason why, or that is the biggest reason why millennials don't want to come back to the church?
No, that's not the only reason.
But is that one of them?
That's one of the many.
Speaking as a millennial, but again, I grew up in the church. I know what it's like to be on both sides of the coin. There was a time when I'm still afraid to wear red lipstick. I don't wear pants to church because God forbid I'm caught in the middle of something. And whereas millennials are a little bit more accepting of the ways of the world now. Now, granted, we are not supposed to dress like the world, but how can, in your opinion, how would we be able to save the world without?
Listen, I love a good fashion. I love a good shoe. I love looking good at all times. But there's still something called modesty.
Right.
And again, I do not agree when I see these gospel artists on the red carpet with your breasts out.
You don't agree?
I don't agree. Because why? You could have still been the same fashion individual without your cleavage on the floor.
Some would say it's just fashion. Okay. It's just the way of
the
world.
But why would you do that? And everybody that comes to the church is not initially saved or saved. And if someone has a lustful spirit, you don't think that you could be enticing them into something else?
Granted.
So I wrote this in my book. I remember one day I was about to go meet this person I was with, and I was like, I'm look real good, and I'm going to wear what I want to wear, knowing I'm going to do what I'm about to do. And I don't know how transparent you want to get with that, but
that's fine. I don't care.
And so the Holy Spirit said to me, "You're a whore." And so I was like, "Are you kidding me?" So now I'm bantering with the Holy Spirit, right? Like, are you kidding me? Who are you? What is it that you're gaining from doing what you're about to do and putting on what you're about to put on? And the bottom line was, everybody gets an even exchange of something. Whether it was my ego was being stroked, I wanted to get a reaction from him. There's always a root to what we do.
Right.
Now, don't get me wrong. If you're married, there's date clothes. There are clothes that I will wear with my husband that I will not wear to church.
Exactly.
And my husband be like, "Okay, now you need to take that off. Like, that's too much." And I'm like, "Oh, but no." And then I have to look at, like, maybe. Because why? My intent is never to offend. And I still have to be mindful of the people that I'm around. Right. Not just as pastor, but as a saved woman of God. Now, I saw a magazine with this woman who had her punjab on and everything. Fabulous. She represented her community. Right. And was covered up. And those of us who are supposed to know God, why do we feel the necessity to unrobe?
That's good.
Why do we feel that in order to accept and to be fashionable and to look good, that we have to be half naked in order to do that? That's a spirit that is behind that.
That's good. I like that. I think that's all my questions.
That's all your questions?
That's what
All right, darling. Thank you once again for tuning in. We appreciate you. We love you. Don't forget to subscribe, share, like, and turn on your notifications so you'll know when we're on next week. Pastor Andina loves you, and I look forward to seeing you again soon.